Hello, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, and it's time for the Hurricane and Hurricane HD video blog for July 10th, 2012. The heat finally breaking across most of the eastern part of the country. Lots of rainfall, though, will ensue because you can't break the heat without some kind of a frontal passage, and that frontal passage will bring lots of heavy rain. So be aware of that, especially for parts of the southeast. Not so much in Florida, along the peninsula at least, but other parts of the southeast could get quite a drenching. As I often mention, be sure to check out weather.gov and put in your zip code for very in-depth, localized information that can help you stay ahead of any weather situation. Looking at the tropics, the same old continues in the Atlantic. Everything is quiet, nothing expected during the next 48 hours. And I would go beyond that and say probably not for the next week. That's just my opinion based on what I'm looking at from the global computer models. We do see a little bit more active intertropical convergence zone out in the tropical Atlantic. As we get closer to August, this will become more of a focal point for where we will start to look for possible development. For now, all is quiet. Caribbean free and clear of any organized convection, as is the Western Atlantic, and as is the Gulf of Mexico. Looking in the Pacific, a great example, as I mentioned yesterday, of a tropical cyclone just gradually spinning down and weakening. That is what Daniel is doing right here. It is now in a much more stable environment. The water temperatures around the region and certainly underneath this tropical storm, Daniel now a tropical storm, too cold to support the deep latent heat of the atmosphere, that just oppressive amount of humidity and heat that you feel. Yeah, that is what these tropical cyclones need in order to thrive, and it's not there. So this is just going to slowly wither away, very much like a plant. If you don't give it enough water, it eventually withers up, dries out, and dies off. The track will be something like this as strong high pressure continues to the north, blowing the trade winds generally from east to west rather briskly, as I pointed out yesterday when we were talking about El Nino. Farther to the east, we do have Emilia, and it is a powerful hurricane with 130-mile-per-hour winds, I do believe, from the last advisory info. It too will head towards colder water and die off and not bother any land areas. It might send enough swell activity up here towards the Baja. Remember, these hurricanes put a lot of energy in the water, and that swell energy will head out and maybe reach the Baja. Likewise, it's possible that Daniel sent a few swells of its own out here towards Hawaii. Just be on the lookout for that. Again, if you go to weather.gov, at least for Hawaii, you can get detailed information on the beach and surf forecast. Looking at the track for Daniel, as I mentioned, it is moving now, going to be heading south of west as that high pressure system to the north squashes it and pushes it south. The low-level skeletal remains, if you will just continue on to the west and just a little bit south of west as a remnant area of low pressure. Emilia going to do a similar thing as it goes along and then weakens. It too will eventually bend back westward and probably south of west. That colder water begins out in this region, and it'll start to lose its thermodynamics, if you will. The ability to tap into that latent heat in the atmosphere will be gone. One thing I wanted to talk about since things are slow. A wonderful tool from the National Hurricane Center is the Tropical Cyclone Discussion. And this is where the forecaster tells you what they are thinking. And if you notice at the bottom, it is written by forecaster Pash. That would be Dr. Richard Pash. And this is not written by a bot or an automatically generated script or anything like that. Richard Pash, Dr. Pash, is a real forecaster at the National Hurricane Center in Miami. This particular product from the National Hurricane Center is very useful in helping those who understand more than just basic meteorology, perhaps, what is going on with the system and why. The first paragraph, and we're going to read this for Hurricane Emilia, I'm just going to read this and kind of explain it to you, and then I want to point out again that this is a great product If you're not familiar with their products, I'm going to go over them these next few days. Might as well talk about something since things are so slow, and try to familiarize you with what these different tools are and how you can take advantage of them. So from the discussion today, 8 o'clock a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, right there, over the past few hours, the central features became a little ragged looking on enhanced infrared imagery. So they're talking about, Dr. Pash here is talking about how the appearance of Emilia has become more ragged. Remember, they have tools off the internet from different university websites where they can analyze satellite pictures to a fine detail to understand what's going on when something's way out in the ocean and there's no Air Force or NOAA reconnaissance. Dvorak T numbers derived from subjective classification by TAFB and SAB, that is the Tropical Analysis Forecast Branch and the Satellite Analysis Branch, have diminished somewhat. So he's basically saying how, looking at satellite picture alone, it states the obvious that Emilia is starting to weaken a little bit. It's not as well organized as it was. And the current intensity estimate is reduced slightly to 115 knots. Emilia is an environment of weak to moderate east-southeasterly shear, with the upper level outflow being impeded slightly over the eastern semicircle of the hurricane. The ship's model indicates that this regime will more or less continue for the next couple of days, and that the shear will be relaxing somewhat in 3 to 5 days. By that time, however, the thermodynamic environment, and remember I was talking about that, the colder sea surface temperatures creating a more stable environment, the thermodynamic environment should become less conducive for the maintenance of a hurricane. The official forecast shows weakening, but not as quickly as called for by the ship's LGEM and FSU, that's Florida State University, super ensemble model. So the first paragraph here, Dr. Pash talks about the structure, the intensity, etc., and what could affect it over the next 5 days, which is their forecast period right here. So this is a great paragraph to know what's going on, kind of like a doctor's checkup when he comes in and says, okay, John Doe. Of course, you don't want to be called John Doe. That usually means you're dead, but you get the idea. Hey, here's what's going on with you. Now, let's talk about the forecast, the prognosis for going forward. That's the second paragraph here from Dr. Pash. The initial motion continues to be west-northwestward, or 285 degrees at 9 knots. Global model forecasts show that a deep layer subtropical ridge should be maintained to the north of Emilia throughout the forecast period. Track model guidance predicts a continued west-northwestward track for the next several days, with only slight changes in forward speed. Late in the period, the models are in general agreement on a westward turn, and this is also shown in the official forecast. This is in best agreement with the typically top-performing ECMWF, what we call the Euro model. And then everything is reflected in all of these forecast points right here. So a great tool, the Tropical Cyclone Discussion. In this case, it's just Hurricane Emilia Discussion number 12. A wonderful tool from the National Hurricane Center. And if you understand some tropical meteorology and what some of these terms mean, this can be a very great tool to know why the forecast is what it is. So take advantage of that if you know how to read it and interpret it. Check it out. And if you don't, there are great message boards such as storm2k.org, certainly Facebook. The National Hurricane Center can be followed on Facebook and Twitter. Ask questions and people will answer them for you. The internet can be a great way to share collective knowledge. All right, I'll share some more of my knowledge with you tomorrow. I am Mark Sedeth, HurricaneTrack.com, my website. Always a pleasure to bring these videos to Hurricane and Hurricane HD, and we'll do it again tomorrow.